Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our third installment of our ERP Circle of Excellence series that is leading to Community Summit North America, taking place October 15th to the 20th at Charlotte, North Carolina. It is the largest independent gathering of the Microsoft Business Applications ecosystem, and we hope we'll see you there. So this program has been really focused on the steps that you need to take to modernize an ERP or during a modernization of an ERP system for your business. In our first episode, we talked about business requirements and how you can start to set those things up. In our second episode, we talked about kind of managing through the hype and the buzz versus the reality of how these cloud ERP systems are being positioned to through marketing and all that sort of thing. In this episode, we're going to touch on one of those big buzzy themes, and that is the cloud, right? Because so many organizations today are managing through migrations from on-premise ERP systems into cloud-based ERP systems. Now, for the record, I will say that I think that is something that is a smart idea. I've lived through it a few times myself in managing through a cloud ERP implementation or migration. However, I will say that in some cases, an on-premise environment may be just fine for your organization. And sometimes you got to put the brakes on a little bit around how ambitious folks are about getting you to move from on-premise to the cloud, especially when it comes to the way some vendors are positioning this stuff and that sort of thing. With that backdrop, let me tell you who we're chatting with here. It's Peter Jekyll of HandsFree ERP, Wayne Sadin, who is CIO of PriceSmart, and Kenny Mullican, who is CIO of Paragon Films. All of us have a whole bunch of experience in doing all of this stuff, and this series is really to share some of those things that we've learned and walk through some of the ideas, the tips, the tricks that can help you through some of these things. This is a joint project between HandsFree ERP, Dynamics Communities, Community Summit North America, and our sister analyst firm called Acceleration Economy, where Wayne is one of our advisory board members on Acceleration Economy, and Kenny is one of our practitioner analysts. So diving into this, Wayne, on Acceleration Economy, you recently did a video and I'm going to quote you on this, sir. Were you saying that cloud ERP implementations are faster and more flexible than traditional on-premise ERP? Now, walk us through your thinking there, sir.
Well, the old model was we delivered it in a box and, it came on a tape back in my early days, and you mounted the tape and then you spent months configuring it. And so with a modern cloud ERP to start with, you flip the switch, they load some test data, or if you've prepared, they load your data, and you're actually using the system. There is no substitute for going hands-on for a couple of reasons. One, you learn how the system really works. Even more important, training for an ERP cutover is a massive change management initiative. Let's say you're a Great Plains user and everybody's used to the screens they've seen. Even if you build the system to do the same business functions as similarly as you can, the user experience will be vastly different. So what if your core group of experts that now broadens up into your power users and then broadens up into your the trainers group is using the software for weeks or months in preparation for the go live? Number one, they've learned all the nuances of it. Number two, in the Microsoft world particularly, they can build the little videos, the just-in-time training, and the other things. And so your change management, which is an absolutely underthought through part of ERP, becomes front and center. And so you've got a tool that allows you to build in your training and build in your customization and build in your organizational exposure. Because the last thing you want to have is a big bang on the software side. You say, look, it works the same. And the vendors will tell you that. And I think as Peter will say and has said, it will function differently even if it does the same process. But you cannot expose people to a green screen interface, to a GUI, to a web-based, on your phone, dashboard, at the same time you're exposing them to, and here's how it calculates sales tax a little differently. So the more you can take the big out of Big Bang by exposing people to it and customizing through it, the better your experience is going to be. Not at delivering software, but delivering usable business change.
So it's a key point there, usable business change, right? Because that's what this ERP software is supposed to enable for our organizations, right? Streamline process, make access to data quicker, more easier to get your hands on if you're a business user out there, a finance user, those sorts of things. Oftentimes said, but much harder to accomplish in the context of an implementation. And your view on this, Wayne, is that you can avoid the big bang aspect of all at once, everything, everywhere that you would have with a on-premise implementation of an ERP by utilizing a cloud-based ERP system and nurturing your team through the use of that system with training and such.
Yeah, it's not just because it's cloud. It's possible to implement a terrible ERP system in the cloud. When we talk about a modern cloud ERP, we got to differentiate fake cloud. I took my on-prem code and I threw it out there in Azure or AWS, and now you have a cloud system. How many vendors tell people that? Boards of directors, stop listening to this stuff. A modern cloud tool is modular. It is extensible. The data model is exposed. I could make a list that I have for Acceleration Economy of all the reasons these super suites, that is an ERP, sitting on top of a layer of enablement, platform as a service, whether it's BI or database or process automation, process mining, AI, putting all this together is what changes the model, not the fact that they took the software out of the box and stuck it in AWS or Azure. So be very careful that we're talking about the right cloud ERP.
Love that. And that's where I was hoping you would go there, Wayne. Thank you very much, because that modular aspect of what you get in a modern cloud ERP system enables you to take that process and move in that direction. Kenny, you've just lived through a pretty big Dynamics 365 finance and supply chain implementation at Paragon Films. Would you agree with some of Kenny, or would you agree with some of Wayne's points there? Would you add to them? What would be some of your take on the on-premise to cloud aspect?
I'd like to believe that a cloud implementation is faster and more flexible. It wasn't my experience. For us, it took considerably longer to move us to the cloud than it did to do our original implementation on premises. For whatever reason, there's a lot of factors that go into that. And one thing might be that I think a lot of people underestimate the challenges that a cloud-based ERP adds to the mix. So with an on-premises AX 2012 system, you have your data all in a SQL database that is pretty much open and accessible however you want it to be. And so a lot of third-party vendors provide add-ons or integrations with AX by just hitting that back-end database. You can extend the views, you can add stored procedures, you can just go straight to SQL. Even your own SSRS and BI can hit that SQL database directly. Once you move into the Dynamics 365 for finance and supply chain in the cloud, you lose that database connectivity. You now have to find other ways to get at that same data. You either have to export it out and go through something like Data Lake Synapse, or you can use APIs like OData to access the data from some entities. You can go through automation. You can go put things into Power Apps and Power Automate. There's so many great things that you can do, but moving from we had direct access to the data to now we have kind of a black box that provides lots of additional functionality, but in some cases, moving to that is more challenging than what we thought it would be or what our vendors ever led us to expect it to be. Just take one simple example. We do some shipping through FedEx, and we've got this little computer sitting there in the shop floor that's got the FedEx client on it. And the connection into AX 2012 was very simple. It went straight through an ODBC connection and allowed you to just connect directly. It took about a day or two to get that set up and working. There is no equivalent in Dynamics 365. You don't have the ability to just easily connect your shop floor FedEx PC up to that. There are third-party things that you can get, but that's really a whole nother project in and of itself. And so as of yet, we haven't tackled that one, but that's just one out of many examples of things that we didn't expect. And then also things like data migration, customizations, those still ended up taking just as long or longer on the cloud-based system. Now, all that said, I absolutely love our new system way, way, way more than I ever did our on-prem system. I love the fact that Microsoft is coming out with new versions of this every month or two, and that when the new features are available, we're going to get them because we have to. We can't just live with what we've got and let it stay there forever. The cloud-based system is going to keep evolving, and it forces us to evolve along with it. And so I would still, all of the complications that come along with it, I still think they are worth it. Completely worth it for us to go to that, but you just can't underestimate what it's going to take to get there and think that it's going to be simple. Kind of like Peter said, this is not a weekend upgrade. For us, it wasn't even a 1 year upgrade. It was about a year and a half to get there.
I love the real world example, Kenny, of the FedEx integration from the shop floor, because those are the types of things that are part of your business process, or part of how the business has run on the previous system, and need to be addressed. And if those become gotchas, and these things slow down the opportunity for your company to make revenue, right, and therefore drive profitability of your business, those are things that that need to have a fix, so they don't become these massive manual processes that you're trying to figure out all the time. Recognizing some of those things, and you brought this up in a previous discussion, recognizing some of those things by talking to other users, other organizations that have gone through some of these implementations that happen to be in the manufacturing category, becomes a really powerful way to uncover some of those things before they become gotchas in your business operation. The other thing that I think is sort of telling about some of what you were talking about there, Kenny, is the data migration aspect. Because there's a belief out there that hey, I'm going to take my data and I'm going to move it into the cloud, and it's going to be glorious, right? And I can have unstructured content and structured data. I can use BI tools to pull this stuff out, and I'm going to have every answer to every question, and everyone's going to be on the same page. And that's not how it works, right? And there's a lot of promise around some of those things. And I think there's some incredible developments that Microsoft's now doing with Fabric and others, right, to make this stuff significantly easier and more real, right, as opposed to fantasy land. But going into this cloud ERP project with knowing that that's not the reality right now, unless you're actually building in a true statement of work and plan against making those things real, is an important thing for folks to take away. Peter, you have been knee deep in a lot of these implementations and a lot of this work that organizations have been doing, much like Kenny and Wayne have been. Do you give us your take on the debate, right, between on-premise and cloud ERP?
Yeah. So both things can be true. We have these great pluses and we have the great minuses. One of the things that to on-premise versus cloud. One of the things I want to talk about that nobody really understands on the cloud versus on-premise ERP, and it so drives partner behavior, which drives the success and the cost of your project. Back when Kenny installed his AEX version, which was on-premise, I'm going to make up these numbers, Kenny. I don't have any inside information. Let's imagine that AEX software cost Kenny and his organization $1 million to purchase on-premise. If that was a good partner, they made $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 of profit on that sale that they were able to plow back into various business activities. Today, if you sell Kenny that similar implementation in the cloud, the dollars are close to zero as far as the margin you're making. Now, think about the partner in that circumstance. That money, that $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 that funded sales, marketing activities has vaporized. The software has not become easier to sell. It hasn't become easier to implement. So what happens? What happens is that what I call is that the partner and the customer engage in this mutual dance of self-deception in the sales cycle, where the customer reveals a budget and the vendor tries to meet that budget. And then what happens is you get halfway through the implementation, the budget's blown and you have to go in for change orders. And that was still the case on-premise, but not always as big an issue. You have to understand today that the vendors that sell this software today have to live 100% on the services of implementing the software. And so what that means, they are going to be even more aggressive in trying to sell those implementation dollars, which means more unrealistic discounting on the front end of selling the projects. And the other really bad side effect of that is I've spoken to multiple project managers on these types of projects, and project managers have now become list keepers because everyone is scared to death to push back on the customer when they want to make a bad decision because nobody wants to lose the service side. So there are these two things that have happened from the people that supply the services to implement this software that people don't understand that aren't in the business. Number one, the people supplying the services are not making money on the software any longer, which leads to worse behavior on the sales side as far as putting unrealistic budgets in front of customers. And then number two, there's no pushback because you're afraid of losing those implementations. And so to me, those two issues, because of the way the software is sold, has actually led, and statistics support it, has actually led to an increase of projects that are over time, over budget, and not on spec.
It's a really tough kind of dichotomy, right? That resides in this environment, because as the customer, as the user, right, that sort of thing, you want to be listened to, you want to be heard on based on what your objectives are and what your needs are, and if you are somebody selling, right, the partner selling or those sorts of things, they don't want to lose, whatever the services element of the deal is. No problem, no problem, no problem. You start hearing. Then when you start getting into the process, the implementation, and the flow, all of a sudden you're hitting skids, right? Is the reality. We've got to, as a community of users, of partners, of ISVs, that type of thing, we've got to help get over that hump. Right. And it's one of the important roles of Dynamics Community, is one of the important roles of Community Summit North America, quite frankly. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in. We went a little longer than usual here on this one, but hey, once we start talking about some interesting stuff, it's tough to stop, right? Because this is not about us. This is about you, the community of folks that are out there trying to figure out how to do these things. We're just trying to share with you, as Wayne would say, some of the scars, right, that we've all experienced in some of our processes and building through some of these massive implementations of ERP systems. Again, I'm going to leave you with what I started with. Kenny, Wayne, and Peter, thank you so much for sharing these ideas, sharing these thoughts. And hey, please join us at Community Summit North America, where the four of us and a few other great folks are going to be joining in our Circle of Excellence Lounge right on the show floor. We can come by, swing by. We can chat about things like BRDs. We can chat about things like on-premise versus cloud. We can talk about our real-world experiences of doing these things. And hopefully you can come away with a few ideas, make your process a little bit easier. Gang, thanks so much for tuning in. Can't wait to see you next time on our road to the Circle of Excellence for ERP at Summit North America. Thanks, everybody.